hope you all had a great lunch. I certainly did. So we're going to discuss account-based marketing today, and we have a very accomplished panel. We've got Brian Bell, CMO of Ping Identity. We've got Mark, CMO of Coveo Solutions, and Sydney, CMO of SalesLoft. So we're going to kick this off. I'm going to ask each of you to introduce yourselves, your organizations, and a brief overview of your ABM strategy.
You want me to begin? Sure. So I'm Brian Bell. I run marketing and alliances at Ping Identity. I've been in various marketing and biz dev roles in enterprise software for longer than I'd like to think at the moment. Within Ping, let me take a minute just by way of introduction to talk about Ping and a little bit about ABM. Do you want us to do that now? Sure. Ping Identity is the leading provider of identity security systems in the enterprise market. So we serve the largest of global companies out there, Bank of America, Shell, Delta Airlines, HP, Cisco, et cetera, by providing an identity and access management platform that enables enterprises to ensure that their users, whether they're employees or customers or partners, can get access to the applications and data that they need. So our core capabilities are products or technologies like single sign-on, multi-factor authentication, access security, identity directory, API intelligence, products like that. Our journey, as relevant to this, as it's relevant to this panel, our journey in marketing has been one that has shifted really in the last few years away from sort of that traditional inbound funnel approach towards one which is very focused on a set of targeted enterprises. And this really started by changing our go-to-market model. We focus very much on the large enterprise. We know exactly who we want to go after. And so we embarked on this journey of account-based marketing by starting with identifying a set of target accounts, total clarity on target accounts, applying intent or behavioral data to those target accounts, and then all of our marketing and sales motions are triggered by what we see going on in those target accounts. So at a high level, that's what we do within Ping, and that's sort of the approach that we take to account-based marketing.
Thanks, Brian. Mark Floisand. I'm a CMO at Coveo. I look after marketing, customer experience, and again, alliances as well, so we're partners in crime. I've been there about 2.5 years. Before that was looking after product marketing at a company called Sitecore, so also in the content marketing space. And from an ABM point of view, I guess our journey is really been one of what happens, I think, for a lot of companies that are going through growth and scale up. In the 2.5 years that I've been there, we've gone from, 180 people to about 360. So we've nearly doubled in size. And at the same time, like yourselves, very much focusing more on who our enterprise customers are, understanding that really to engage with them, you just have to be relevant. And the more relevant you can be in every interaction you have with them, the more chance you've got of breaking through the clutter. And that's really what's driving us.
Hello, Sydney Sloan. I'm CMO at SalesLoft. They still have my picture up from last year when I spoke, when I was at Alfresco, but I've been at SalesLoft for about the last 5 months. Sorry, I talk really loud. So SalesLoft is a sales engagement platform, and it's used by sellers to engage with buyers in a meaningful way. So how to kind of do it at scale, yet still have the ability to make each interaction personalized and help the salesperson in organizing their day and managing tasks and managing all the interactions that they're having with customers. What's interesting about coming into SalesLoft after being a big advocate of ABM for many years, where we went through the, selecting accounts, negotiating with the sales teams, tiering the accounts. When I got to SalesLoft, they were already 100% into ABM. And it wasn't a question. What I loved about it was that marketing owns the identification of the accounts. But we were able to add a little bit more data and insight into how we were prioritizing those accounts. So going from just the SaaS accounts with size and investment to looking at other elements of what might be in their tech stack, the intent data, and also expanding footprints inside of existing accounts, looking at white spaces and other opportunity. I know these are things we're going to talk about. But the craziest part about it is that we don't use marketing automation. And so as we look at these target accounts, and we truly are an outbound organization, because that's what we do, the role that marketing plays is very different than in many traditional organizations. So I'll leave it at that and dig into it further later.
Great. I'm sure there's a lot of email automation vendors here who can talk to Sydney after that. No, I'm just kidding. So let me ask you the second question. So how is ABM different from your traditional marketing, whether it's inbound or outbound or advertising? What are the sort of nuances of how it makes it different? Anybody can just...
Sure, I'll go at it first. I guess part of it is the journey that we've been on, which is, when I joined, we were very much a company that was very much focused on acquiring new customers. It was land, at all costs, and move on to the next one. And, the following year was more like, well, hang on, how do we take advantage of more kind of content marketing orientated techniques? How do we give people, frankly, more choice about when they choose to engage with us and, put content out there? And really this year has been a maturing of saying, we actually have a good chunk of customers, large organizations, especially in the high-tech arena. They don't necessarily, need us to have content proliferated out there for them. How do we in turn try and anticipate and identify the kind of intent that they're already exhibiting? How do we put stuff in front of them based on what we know is going to be relevant to them? Because there's now obviously things like the ability to see what large targeted accounts are actually out there exploring. And therefore, how do you get increasingly targeted with your outbound stuff rather than, again, just frankly a broader form of spam, which is really what content marketing to some degree has become. So I think the essence of it is understanding what people are really looking for, understanding the phase that they're at, and having information ready for them, again, at the right time when it's going to be most meaningful and relevant to them in their buying journeys on their timescale.
Yeah, I'll respond to that, just react to that too. I think, first of all, there's a big question here, maybe buried in the way you asked it, about what is account-based marketing. And I'm sure many of you have had countless debates on what is the definition of account-based marketing. My own view is, first of all, this is not a new concept. This is something that has been out there for a long time, right? Decades, if not, even longer. It's just the idea that you're going to focus on going after a defined set of accounts. I think what's changed is that there's a lot of really interesting technology and approaches and data that you can use to implement this more effectively. The other thing I'll kind of respond with is that in our own internal discussion on what is ABM, it was important that we did align on and agree on how we wanted to think about it. And the way that we did that at Ping was by saying that this was not a tactic, it wasn't a campaign, right? And it's not a marketing effort. That account-based marketing is very much I think you just said like a mindset. It's really a strategic approach to engaging with customers in a way that resonates with them and that is relevant to them as a way to identify and expand opportunities in those accounts. So it is a strategy, it's a strategic approach with a bunch of tactics. It is, by definition, requires alignment between sales and marketing. It is about some level of personalization, and you could get into all kinds of debates about, is it one-to-one ABM, is it one-to-few, is vertical marketing ABM? So I don't know if we're going to go down that path, but it is certainly, there's an element of relevance and resonance and personalization involved in all approaches to ABM. And it requires, I think, unique approaches to measurement. That would be the other thing I'd add, just measurement needs to change.
Yeah. So I'll pick up on your, is it one-to-one, is it one-to-many, because that's where my thoughts were in having to serve multiple businesses. So many of us don't have the luxury of just having one segment that we're going after. And so the way that we're looking at it is the difference between our large opportunities, large accounts, where we do have more resources going after a single account and are investing because the return is higher, right? When you're talking about $100,000 deals, then you can invest more in landing and expanding those accounts. And we have teams that are organized to manage those accounts. So we'll do things like account-based advertising and direct mail and VIP gifts and visits to their offices. And so we'll do the high-touch, expensive stuff, where a commercial team has got a 30-day sales cycle and they need volume. And so where we're applying this is still doing things like warming up contacts and accounts, but I always like the rule of 3 with any data set. So I try to pick 3 things in a segment of that pool in the commercial accounts that can at least create some sort of starting relevance. What's their tech stack? What's the role of the person that we might be targeting in that account? What industry are they in? And then I can create a segment for which I can still run an account-based play because they have similar characteristics where it can at least be meaningful for the first couple of touches we do. So.
And that's in the commercial space. You do that. So even in commercial, you're segmenting it into sort of like a one to few type approach.
Exactly.
Is that how you describe it?
Exactly. Yeah. And then there's still the mass, right? The tier 3, which is everybody else. And we let the SDRs cherry pick out of those accounts. Still gives them stuff to work on where marketing's not working on to warm up.
So it sounds like you have a threshold of lifetime customer value above which you go to the one to few or the one to one. Yeah. Okay, so the next question is, how has this changed the relationship between marketing and sales? You know, traditionally they've been frenemies or adversarial. How does ABM change that?
At the risk of going first.
Sorry, you want to go first on that one?
Yeah, this is one I'm kind of passionate about. So lean forward, right? I think one of the things we saw was, maybe it was just the nature of the organization I joined, but there had been this sort of traditional marketing and sales relationship. Let's just leave it at that. There was this sense that marketing generates a pipeline to a point, there's a handover and sales carries it on, and one washes the hands of the other, and they can't close and the leads are crap, depending on who you spoke to, right? So one of the things that I think ABM has helped us do, frankly, is see that both parties are in it from beginning to end. This isn't about marketing then sales. It really is about marketing and sales from beginning to end. Let me be specific. So, we got together as a marketing and a sales team to identify what were the kind of constituents of our target account universe. Therefore, effectively choosing the market that we're going to go after in partnership between marketing and sales. And therefore, obviously, narrowing down our specific campaigns, particularly against those enterprise accounts. And thereafter, once they were now customers, what ongoing campaigns are we going to do in account to further expand those? So the two are joined at the hip all the way through, rather than it being a us, them. And that's profound, or it's proved to be profound.
Yeah, my provocative idea here is to merge your sales and marketing operations teams, where they are thinking about account selection, the cleanliness of the data, how it's routed, how it's measured, and it's in an ongoing, never-ending effort, especially as you need to continue to grow. Absolutely everything you just said, Mark, in terms of what's marketing done for me today, and what are you signing up for in terms of the leads that you're going to give. In history, I've lived in those kinds of environments. I think the thing is just how much data can you give to the salespeople to help. I always think that at the end of the day, I want the salespeople to still select their accounts because it's their livelihood. But the more data that I can bring to the equation, the more that we can work together on testing things that work and then going all in on it. I think those are steps you can take to continue to build a relationship.
Great. Let me actually go to the next question. I would love for each of you to describe your ABM tech stack. How do you define it? What vendors do you use? I'm sure the audience is also looking at some vendors.
The tech stack, big question. Well, first of all, I would just comment that there are some incredibly interesting new technologies coming out that do support a lot of what we've been talking about, helping you identify what accounts to go after, intent data, and then also triggering marketing and sales motions as you find a growing level of engagement within these accounts. Our particular tech stack is where, Salesforce and Marketo, we use Bombora for intent search, so that provides that behavioral data, that overlay to our target accounts that then triggers a set of sales and marketing motions that we put out there to go engage with those accounts. We use Engagio predominantly right now as a way to measure engagement within accounts at an account level, not so much at a lead level. And we also use Evergage for web personalization. So I'm sure there's a bunch of other things in there, but those are the big ones that we use.
Cool, passing the conch. As you said, there's a lot of names out there. I would say we're not final on our stack, and some of that is because we've been experimenting with things that are a little bit homegrown. But some of the things that we've looked at are things like Demandbase, Engagio, Uberflip, all of which have got their pros and cons depending on what it is you're looking to do. Some of the stuff though we've kind of grown ourselves, and tapping into services like Clearbit and whatnot that have given us quite a lot of information when people arrive at us. I'm fortunate. Coveo uses we use our own technology to do kind of AI-based personalization and recommendations. That's what we do, and so it kind of behooves me to eat my own dog food. So that we are doing. And then I think on the intent side of things, what we found is that there's an increasing set of vendors, networks, call it what you want, almost the content equivalent of what search engine marketing acquisition used to be like, where you can now go and buy eyeballs that are looking on certain sets of content. And there we, for example, use things like Tech Target. A lot of our companies are in the high-tech arena. And so being able to go and do targeted advertising only to those accounts that we're aimed at, that's been really useful, as well as being able to then look under the hood and see, particularly from an acquisition point of view, what those target accounts are doing, who's in there, and so on. So... and SalesLoft, thank you for the reminder. So, I'm glad you reminded me. So here's
nice plug.
Just a very quick thing. So as the three of us got
He was testing you.
I was testing you. Yeah, and we use SalesLoft. So here's the irony. I've known Sydney for like 10 years, but in completely different companies. Then we realized I'm a customer of you, and he's a customer of me, and we didn't even know it.
And he's a future customer. I'm going to convert.
Anyway, but that's
I
another
won't
story.
say who we use now.
Yeah. Having been in a company now at SalesLoft for 5 months, and I know SalesLoft has a lot of tech, so I hope I don't miss anything, but I'd encourage you to think about categories of tech. So you've got your SFA, your CRM, that's going to be, most of us probably Salesforce. And then thinking about the data and the data providers. So HD Data has been a great provider. DiscoverOrg, ZoomInfo are ones that I've enjoyed working with. On the additional kind of intent side, we currently use Everstring, which also includes Bombora. I've also been a fan of Demandbase for many years and love what they're doing with intent data. And recently, we're a strong partner with Terminus, and they're doing some amazing things. So I'm really having fun learning about the evolution of those platforms, of the ABM platforms. I'm also a fan of Follows and the work that they're doing. Moving on in terms of other ABM things, we do a lot of direct mail integration. So Sendoso is our go-to partner, but PFL is a company that I see a lot of people use. Obviously, we use SalesLoft for a lot of our outbound activity. What am I missing? All the data vendors, lean data, same thing. I use similar data routing tools.
So that's a lot.
No marketing automation.
And no marketing automation.
Soon to
Seriously.
change, we hope. So that's a lot of tech. Actually, we have a great audience. We've got 2 questions. So the first one's from Mahesh. And Mahesh, I love this question. So it's like ABM seems like a lot of heavy lifting the way we all as a panel defined it. Is there room for an ABM light approach? That's sort of something in between traditional lead-based approach and the heavy ABM approach?
I'll take that. Absolutely. I think you have to view ABM as a journey. It's not sort of binary, right? You don't stop necessarily what you're doing and say we're going to completely shift gears and go to AM. I think you really have to think about ABM as getting from where you are today to where you want to get to. And I would also encourage you, if you are going on this journey, to, like a product roadmap, map out a roadmap for that journey. And that includes not just the technology that's going to support it, but more importantly, what are you trying to achieve in that journey? For us, for example, it started, and I think for many companies, it starts with that sales and marketing alignment on which targeted accounts you're going to go after. Agree on a methodology to identify those target accounts, be very explicit about how you're going to identify those accounts, and then be incredibly aligned on those accounts and don't stray from those accounts as a starting point. And then from there, you begin to think about, okay, how does that impact maybe your messaging and some of your tactics? And then how does the technology support you? I would not start with the technology. I would start with the strategy, laying out a roadmap, and agreeing on some milestones, and then only look at the technology when you understand exactly how it's going to support that roadmap.
So I'll add a battle wound into this conversation of a lesson learned back at that company. When I was at Alfresco, I came in and we had 13,000 contacts in our database that were all kind of trade show dead leads. And 4 months in, I stood on the stage at our sales kickoff and I said, we're going to go after target accounts and I'm going to get you 5 relevant contacts in each one of your accounts. And it took me 18 months. It's a lot of work to do the identification, get your data and account set up, and then figure out contacts, relevant contacts, clean contacts. Definitely don't go out and go, here's the data set I just bought, and let them start to prospect on that where half of the contacts in there are no longer relevant. Another battle wound. So I think starting small with a team and working through and figuring out and evolving over time is the right strategy. And I 100% agree with you. First is selection of accounts, and then that's just going to continue to change.
Good.
I got one quick thing to add, and if you want an example of ABM Lite, actually it's my man on the right here. So when we first started getting into this, very, very briefly, again, you can't do it all, right? So we basically said, is there some early quick win test trial, small scale thing we can do with one sales guy and maybe one set of narrowing of the accounts, and where we came to was the realization that there were certain group of tech firms that they had one thing in common, which was they were all part of one private equity portfolio. And they actually had a pattern of how they were acquiring technology. And so we thought about how can we add value to that pattern? And Ping are one of them. And so ironically, we went after Ping with the very clear view that we understood who their PE firm was, and we understood what value they were looking to get out of there. And now, bit by bit, we've ticked off several of the Vista equity portfolio accounts, and we continue to do more. So it's an example of trying to say what's really, really, really relevant to a group of people, and let's get focused on them and prove this thing out. And I tell you, the technology under the hood was spreadsheets at the time and like labor, but it was manageable. So I'm with you. Don't count on the tech.
I'm a positive victim of his success in penetrating Ping. So.
It's great. You didn't have to read through 1,000 emails and 50 phone calls. He just got you with relevant personal content. You look happy as you should. So we have a few more audience questions. So Sydney, this one is for you. You talked about merging marketing and sales. So 2 sort of questions from that. How do you measure marketing's contribution to that joint team in terms of metrics? And then how do you compensate marketing? I mean, obviously sales get commissions. If you're an equal partner, does that change the comp model for marketing?
That's great question. So I think my provocative was, merge marketing and sales operations. I physically, at my last company, moved them together. They sat in and their Salesforce admin team, just so at least they were talking every day. But in terms of how we're measured, so we look at 4 different elements. I look at pipeline, target account pipeline, percentage of the pipeline that marketing influences, and we run about 80% of that. My sales counterpart looks at opportunities. So we blend number of SDOs versus the actual revenue, because the revenue can vary and the number of opportunities stays stagnant. So we blend those 2. And then I look at inbound non-target. So how much is actually coming to us that is not within our target, and look at how that's converting differently than the target account.
Got it. No, that makes sense. Let me ask you, what about results? Like the proof's in the pudding, what can you each talk about in terms of tangible results that ABM has delivered for your organizations?
Sure. I mean, just as an example, when we looked at our conversion rates for what I would call traditional marketing approaches 2.5 years ago, they were in decline, and they were falling every quarter because again, we were talking to a high-tech audience that is sick to death of being spammed. Every one of us knows how this feels, and yet we don't assimilate that and think about, well, what are we inflicting on our prospects and customers? So that was the first epiphany, which was, we're already seeing conversion rates go down, let's go deal with it. The moment we started thinking about, from an ABM point of view, let's just really focus on people that we want to ultimately get an appointment with. What does it take to do to increase that yield? And so we started with a very small campaign, and we aimed at 50 people. We did, some very special, cherry-picked direct mail stuff that was, at the time, like jaw-droppingly expensive. But we got a 20% conversion to meeting or appointment. And so for me, that was, frankly, 10x what we'd seen from the other stuff. Mm-hmm. And when I compared the cost of that meeting versus, for example, the cost of buying a booth at Dreamforce and staffing all the folks that are there, which we continue to do because we're very big in the Salesforce ecosystem, it was still a bargain. So the more tailored and targeted these things get, the more the conversion rate goes up, and the more it warrants that increased investment in those 1 or 2 or 3 people you're looking to get in front of.
It's very impressive.
Yeah, one of my favorite things to do on the rah-rah emails, so-and-so closed one, this big deal, and then it's rah-rah, I used to use Marketo, so they had this view called Opportunity Analyzer, and it would show how many people that were touched in the account and where marketing was working, where sales was working. I use BrightFunnel now, which I love. They have a similar view as well. Just insert that into the rah-rah email, just so people realize how many touches it took, all the different aspects that marketing was contributing along with sales, and it just helps to reinforce the partnership.
Yeah, I've used that as well. We use BrightFunnel as well, and that's a powerful way to show also how marketing and sales work together. I would answer it by saying, why do you do ABM? Why are we even having this conversation? I think there's really 2 reasons, right? One is because it's more effective. It's a more effective way of penetrating into the accounts that you think have a higher propensity to buy. And so you need to measure that effectiveness. And, I think Sydney said it best. You look at your ability to penetrate and drive opportunity within those target accounts. The second reason you do it is because it is more efficient. It's fundamentally, I think, a more efficient way to market, right? And you can measure that by looking at things like customer acquisition costs. If you're able to do that with your finance team, you can do that by looking at things like conversion rate. When you start to look at all of those metrics on efficiency, you should see gains. And it's important to note that it's not just about effectiveness, but it's also about efficiency.
Got it. So we're at the 2.5-minute mark, so I'm going to request a quick response on this one. Any particular challenges you guys face on your ABM journey? Was it the data? Was it technology? Was it people? Was it skill set? Any particular insights anyone would like to share?
None. No.
Great.
Liar.
Picking the accounts is the hardest.
It wasn't the technology. There's plenty of technology. I think we had I would say a people change. Change management is something 25 years in this, I keep forgetting how hard change management is. As an individual, I react to change extremely quickly. I just assimilate it, doesn't bug me, and I forget that that's not the norm. And I think what we found was that I could drive my marketing team really hard to do this, and we were at least 3 to 6 months ahead of where our sales folks were ready. And so we ended up creating friction. Unnecessary friction, because I had a team that was steered in one direction, and my sales team was still not on board, and I should have worried much more about the change management. And next time around, I would plan an extra 6 months just for change management.
Great.
Yeah, I would just say sales and marketing alignment. ABM, you cannot do ABM without sales and marketing alignment. And when you do ABM, you will have greater sales and marketing alignment. Yes.
Great. So I think we have an audience question, and clearly you guys are having an impact because the questions from somebody earlier on in their career, and they're trying to figure out which ABM tech stack should they sort of center their skill set or certification on, so they're most relevant, because clearly it's asked for in job descriptions. Should they do demand-based? Should they do tech target? Any advice to folks?
So I was just telling Mark, there's a program that I've been introduced to called GreenFig, which it's like a 4-month certification program, and I know somebody that's in it, and I'm just watching it and I'm fascinated. And Karen Steele from Lean Data got me involved. What they get certified on is Marketo, Google Analytics, and HubSpot. So the MarTech stack.
Certify.
They get Marketo certified and HubSpot certified in 4 months. And excellent. So I would start with Salesforce or a marketing automation platform as your core, and then those other things on top of it.
Okay.
Yeah, and I mean, just bear in mind the technology stack changes like the weather, and so, you know, if you're new in your career, worry about the first principles. The first principles are do right by customers and figure out how to be relevant to people, and don't waste their time. Time is probably our most precious commodity, and if you can take that on board and think about how can you be relevant for the people you're marketing to and don't waste their time, whatever technology enables that to happen is good, and anything that gets in the way of that is bad.
Great. So we're up on time. I just wanted to thank Ty as well for focusing on marketing and on the CMO. I loved the lineup of the sessions, and this has been a wonderful panel. I personally learned a lot. So thank you to all of you.
Thank you.